Hello, and welcome to your Online Strength Coach Podcast, episode 54. If I'm swole enough, do I need any more? How's it going? This is Mark. Welcome to episode 54 of your Online Strength Coach Podcast. Today's question is one of my backlog, which I've actually got through reasonably quickly, which was both a pleasant and unpleasant surprise at the same time. It's nice to have some material to work from. Questions are, of course, the material I use for the podcast. So as I always ask, if you have any questions you'd like to hear answered, please leave a comment. I went into my automatic mode there of like and subscribe and all that crap. Leave us a comment or send me an email, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. The bigger backlog of questions I get, the more I can do these videos, or the easier it is for me to do these videos. And it comes from Ian K76 from episode 40 odd. I'm not entirely sure which 40 it was, probably the high 40s, 48 maybe. Your point at 13ish is only valid if the studies reviewed all had, or the majority, groups that did not periodise. Guessing they didn't. We talked about the episode where I looked at daily undulating versus normal periodization. Other groups in those studies did periodise, but they used what was termed as linear periodization, which, depending on the study, depends on what they determine that as. I'm just writing the research review article from last month because I never got a chance to the month before. Of course, I lie. I just didn't do it. And I came across a study, a complete tangent here, but I came across a study that was weekly undulating periodization versus block periodization. And what they did was they took the same cycle. So the cycle was 5 sets of 10 at 70%, 5 8s at 75%, 5 5s at 88%, 5 3s at 93%, and then a deload of 3 sets of 6 at 65%. So that's a 5-week cycle. So basically what they did with the daily undulating group, the weekly undulating group, they basically ran that 5-week cycle twice in a row. And for what they call block periodization, they basically just ran the same workout 2 weeks in a row. So they ran 2 weeks of 5 sets of 10 at 70%, and then they did 2 weeks of 5 sets of 8, blah, 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 which isn't really block periodization. Is basically what you would call, what lifters would term a linear cycle, as in starting from a period of high reps, low intensity, coming up to a period of lower reps, higher intensity over a set period of time. That's typically what you would term a linear cycle. It's basically just a set period of training that's got a target at the end of it. But where in some of these scientific studies, they don't really represent the question, because you could use block periodization, but the block periodization can be, the first block is a hypertrophy block, and the second block is a transition block between hypertrophy and strength, and the next block is a strength block. And within that setting, you can use whatever sets and reps you want. Like, you can start with 10s on hypertrophy block, or start with 12s, 10s, and 8s from week on week. Research kind of makes it quite wooden at times, and I think we don't really cover what is essentially one of the most relevant and important topics, certainly within strength training. Research, as in what schemes work better with what populations, what schemes work best with certain training ages. No one really looks at that properly. So one of the most frustrating things as a practitioner looking at research is either telling me stuff that I already know, or it's a study that has no relevance or has been done for the sake of being able to do a study. Another one that I didn't put in my review in last month's JSCR was an EMG study on single rope single rope battle rope versus, or single arm battle rope versus double arm battle rope recruitment patterns. Who the fuck needs to know that information? Nobody, I would venture. But they do it because EMG is quite easy to do, and battle and rope's quite easy to do. Anyone can do it. They don't need any kind of ability. This is too much of a tangent. Just kind of going off on what you said. Pedantic bitch, yes I am. Yeah, and I agree as well. It should be. I like my audience to be pedantic. I like them to nitpick shit. I like you to get into what I say or what I write, because the feedback makes me better, for one, but it also opens up discussion. And if this is a two-way conversation, although it is by definition a one-way conversation, but if it is a two-way conversation, then it becomes a lot easier and becomes more engaging for the audience as well. Great vid though, and well explained. Relevant research methods, thanks. Last couple of minutes, very good. Question: if we don't need any more muscle mass, do we need to do higher rep, lower intensity mechanical work? No, thanks for that question. Essentially, the answer to this question is no. If you're in a weight class, let's say, in your case, you're a 93 kilo lifter. Let's say you're 93 kilos and you sit habitually at 8 to 10%. You don't want to cut water weight, so you're not really interested in becoming heavier for your weight class. So that's not something you want to partake in. You just want to lift, and you're quite happy with your size, your shape, your habitual eating. Basically, everything is the way you want it to be, but you want to become a better lifter. In that scenario, higher rep mechanical work for the sake of it is not without merit. It is, however, very low down on your to-do list, or what should be on your to-do list. In that sort of scenario, you should be looking at either everything should be lift specific for a start. I'm not a huge believer in the need for assistance exercise. In some instances, some different kind of assistance exercises can help people with a skill learning block. For example, if someone falls forward out of the hole in a squat, outside of like tweaking their technique, if you're not getting what you want, you can use something like a pause squat, or you can use something like chains or bands to emphasize the need to drive the shoulders, the head, and the chest up into the bar out of the bottom to stop the torso sinking. So, like, different exercises or assistance work can be used for that. Hypertrophy work can be done, but then hypertrophy work should be skill specific anyway. If you want to get better at bench press, then you need to do some kind of pressing variations. Hypertrophy work, so flat barbell, flat dumbbell, different grips, incline but not going up to high inclines, lower inclines, declines. All of those specific assistance exercises will help with the hypertrophy of the muscles involved within bench pressing. Are for the squat, front squats, back squats, split squats, things of that nature will help with the building up of the thigh for the utilization for, so you utilize more muscle mass, or you can train more muscle mass for squat. Larger cross sectional area equals greater force production potential, but doesn't necessarily mean greater force production. It needs to be trained for that manner. But if you're quite happy with your body weight, you're in fairly good shape, and you're quite, like, there's no real need for higher rep, lower intensity work. In fact, I'd say there's probably no need for it. I myself don't really do too much assistance work. I do very little assistance work. A typical like weekly workout or weekly schedule for me would be: day one would be squat, bench press, deadlift, and pull up. Day two would normally be a rest day. If it's not a rest day, it'd be shoulder press and some kind of row. And then I just repeat that 2-day cycle. So I do 6 sessions, between 3 and 6 sessions. I always do bench press and squat 3 times a week, sometimes 2 times a week, depending on where I'm at in the cycle. Never deadlift more than twice a week. I was doing it 3 times a week there for a little while, but I don't know what I got out of it, so I'm going back to 2 times a week. And at the end of a cycle where things are heavier, I'll squat once, bench once. I'll bench twice, squat once, deadlift once. And I try to assistance exercise that I do is purely bodybuilding in nature, and it'll normally be for shoulders and upper back. I don't really do any lower body assistance work. I don't really feel that it adds anything to what I do. I've certainly not seen it increase my strength in either squat or deadlift at all, so I don't do it personally. So I'm not a big believer. If you are light in your weight class, then staying lean and gaining weight can be a good strategy, but it's not a great strategy over the short term period of time. Like going on a 3 to 4 month bulk per se doesn't really make any sense. You should be looking at it as a 3 to 4 year thing. It's as you're maturing into your weight class, and you don't mature into your weight class in a matter of months. You mature in your weight class over a matter of years. So if you start off as a light 93, maybe you're 88, 87, then it's going to take, if you're natural, it's going to take you 5 years to put on that lean weight. And as a non-natural, then things are different. You know, like you'll spike weight a lot faster. Normally your federations allow 24-hour weigh-ins, so you can manipulate water a lot easier than someone who competes in tested federations. You have 2-hour weigh-in windows, so it's kind of different in that scenario. Someone in that scenario might use the off season to do purely mechanical work or purely high rep, low intensity training, and then when they finally do buy a new BMX, they plan out their cycle route, and you know they know where they want to be at the end, and they have their landmarks set out, and they achieve those landmarks week in, week out, and they get to where they want to be come comp time. Like when you hear someone like Bill Kazmaier talking, where he says he would train like 5 sets of 5 at 70% in the off season, and then we had a competition coming up where he wanted to squat a world record, that he'd know he'd have to lift this and this workout and that and this workout and this workout. That would, because either in the off season he'd be cruising or he wouldn't be on, and then when he went into his build up and he knew to get to where he wanted to go, then he needed this for 5 here, this for 3 there, that for 8 there. So that's kind of how their training goes. So the need for lower intensity mechanical work is purely, again, a slight tangent. The need for lower intensity mechanical work is 100% case specific. It's not going to make you better at the lift per se. It might do if you got room to play with in your weight class. Doing lots of bodybuilding work for the chest, shoulders and lats can help. It creates a larger pool of fibers, or larger fibers, or a larger pool of fibers, from which you then can utilize within your bench press training and recruit them and turn them into fast twitch fibers, and utilize them with your skill learning and all your coordination factors within the lift to turn into a better bench presser, or a better squatter, or a better deadlifter. So yes, you don't need to do it if you're happy in your weight class. You need to focus on skill-specific problems, lift-specific problems. So within squat, if you find you always miss lifts because of this reason, then go down the road where you can say, how can I knock that air out of my lift? And bench press and deadlift are the same. And then you just look at optimizing your training cycles, look at how you can better utilize periods of volume. And then if you get good at like a good cyclical volume manipulation, then how do you realize that? What's the best way you can realize that? Do you need a 5-week peak or a 5-week intensification with a 2-week taper? Do you need a 10-week intensification? Do you need a mix of volume intensification followed by a 3-week peak for competition? These are factors within your programming that you can utilize. And a lot of people might not think it, but it does vary widely from people to person. So optimizing those processes are where you're going to get the best bang for your buck within that setting. Okay, Ian, it took a month, but hopefully it's been worth the wait. Thanks for the question. As I said at the start, any questions, comments, please leave them below. Send me an email, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. Come visit us on the web at castironstrength.com. Check out all our sweet ass articles. Come on our spambot written forums and post up a log. Okay, this is Mark of Your Online Strength Coach Podcast, signing out. 15 minutes, not too bad.